Welcome to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Jesus is coming. Every day, we are looking at some of the signs that are happening around us.
In this episode, we are going to see about the strange things that are happening in the sky.
US challenged in the final frontier. The Pentagon has been warned. Assume your infrastructure has already been hacked.
Space has been called the final frontier. The United States has been an unrivaled power in this domain, but 50 years after it landed the first man on the moon, America now has the strong competition. Earth's orbit is becoming militarized.
On July 1st, 2019, a report released by London-based Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, warns that the US is vulnerable.
From 1990 to 1991, during the first Gulf War, 10% of US weapons used space-based guidance systems such as satellite positioning. In the 2001 mission in Afghanistan, 60% of US weapons were precision-guided, with many receiving data that allowed them to alter their own course to hit a target. By the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the number of space-reliant US weaponry had risen to 68%, Chatham House reported. And over the course of the war, from 2003 to 2011, US reliance on commercial satellites rose 560%. Until recent years, the US had little to fear in space. It continued to operate the world's most advanced space flight system, the Space Shuttle. Today, the US is still a leader, but it has cancelled the Space Shuttle program altogether, and its rivals are rising. The Chatham House report states, vulnerabilities in the strategic infrastructure could result in severe consequences of international security. In the event of crisis escalation, such as in Ukraine, the Middle East, or in South Asia, the assumption is that weapon system will perform as planned, but this should not be taken for granted. America's first rival space was the Soviet Union. The Soviets achieved several space milestones before the Americans, but the latter won the space race decisively, and the Soviet Union was bankrupted in the process. Russian President Vladimir Putin, believing the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the century, is reviving Russia's space program. GLONASS, Russia's version of America's GPS, began as a 1970 Soviet military communication system experiment. In 1982, the commercial application of GLONASS became known with the launch of its first satellite. It was declared fully operational in 1993 and currently operates 24 satellites. GLONASS capabilities lag far behind GPS, but Russia continues to develop it in order to make the country less reliant on the United States. In the past, the US has cut GPS signals in certain locations during Russian military campaigns. There are concerns that Moscow is using GLONASS offensively, intentionally sending out incorrect data. A March 26, 2019 report by the Washington, D.C.-based Center for Advanced Defense Studies noted that the GLONASS attacks are emerging as a viable, disruptive strategic threat. The study found 9,883 suspect instances for Russia's spoofing since February 2016. The report noted that these occurred across 10 locations, including Russian conflict zones in Crimea, Syria, and Ukraine. Beidou enables China military to make precision strikes without relying on America's GPS. Alexandra Sykes of the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies said that Beidou could also be used to deny or degrade the signal received by other users of the system. Beidou has already shipped over 70 million systems to more than 90 countries. These systems include technology that connects with the Chinese satellite navigation system, but they may also include technology that would allow the Chinese government increased ability to infiltrate and attack computer systems. On November 7, 2018, Russia and China signed the agreement on peaceful use of Beidou and GLONASS between People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation to facilitate the large-scale cooperation in the satellite navigation field between the two countries. China has also rapidly advanced its space exploration capabilities.
So far, we are seeing about the science happening in the heaven. After seeing all these things, we definitely need a break. Don't go anywhere. We will continue after a short break. Welcome back to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Jesus is coming. Before the break, we are seeing about the signs happening in the heaven. Let's continue. On March 29, 2019, the Times wrote that a new space race has begun between the United States and China. The starting gun was fired on January 2019, when China announced it had landed a spacecraft, Chang'e 4, on the far side of the moon and deployed a rover to send back images for the first time of the surface that faces away from us, the Times wrote.
This was a mission NASA had deemed too difficult and costly. In one giant leap, China is on a par with existing space powers America and Russia. China's plans for space include developing a moon base within the next 10 years that will be used for both research of the moon and as a launchpad for exploration further into the solar system.
On June 5, 2019, China also became the first nation to solely own and operate a floating sea launch when it launched a rocket, similar to ballistic missile, from a civilian cargo ship in the LOC. The China National Space Administration wrote, launching a rocket from the sea has advantages of high flexibility, good adaptability for specific tasks, and excellent launch economy. During a forum at the Center of Strategic and International Studies in April 2019, Steve Kittai, the U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Space Policy, said that in 2015, Russia and China began taking an offensive posture toward the U.S. in space. He said, not only to do Chinese and Russian military doctrine indicate they view space important to modern warfare, they view counter-space capabilities as a means to reduce US and allied military effectiveness. Kittai warned that America must be ready to counter these space threats, saying that we are at a strategic inflection point. The scope and scale of the threats to our space system is at an all-time high and expanding. In January 2007, China used a missile to destroy one of its own satellites that was orbiting 500 miles above the ground, where many satellites operate. Proving its satellite killer capability sparked fears that a space arms race would follow, and we are indeed seeing that develop. If you are China or Russia, you don't need the capabilities the US has, said Adam Ruth, research associate with the Center of a New American Security Defense Program. Instead, they have concentrated on building counter-space weapons. It's cheaper to develop these types of capabilities than it is to develop satellites with a similar advantage. Along with its operational anti-satellite missiles, China is working to produce a ground-based laser weapon that can counter low-orbit space-based sensors by 2020. Though Russia and China still lag behind the US in technical and military parity, the greater threat comes from the ability not to replicate but to destroy US space capabilities. Reports on Europe's advancements in space and cyber technology are sparse, but do not let this mislead you. European space technology is advancing rapidly. Europe is developing its own satellite navigation system, Galileo, to prevent European nations from becoming vassals to the United States, as former French President Jacques Chirac characterized it in 2001. Europe has also been taking other steps to increase its presence in space. Walter Ballheimer, CEO of German Orbital Systems, said, "Germany was overtaken a long time ago, but it's not too late. If they are courageous enough and adopt a clear space policy, then we can still have a piece of the cake that we should have as a leading export nation." The Federation of German Industries has recently called for its government to support expansion into space by providing billions of euros. The report revealed the previously hidden militaristic aim of space, writing that independent space advancement is vital for governmental and military strategic autonomy, saying that Bundeswehr missions are inconceivable without space systems. Germany has long been recognized as the leader in Europe, and this report boldly states that by increasing fund of German space industries will ensure Berlin remains the motor of European space strategy. The report calls on Europe to take a greater share of the burden of defending Europe, and in so doing, stop outsourcing their strategic thinking to Washington. Among the many topics covered is the militarization of space and increasing cyber threats. The EU recognizes the need to ensure its safety in all of these realms without relying on another power, specifically the US. Level of autonomy with a focus on security and defense should alarm the world, especially the US. In 2005, he warned that Germany is a big cyber threat than the West gives it credit for. On March 27, 2019, India shot down one of its low-orbit satellites with a ground-to-space missile, making it fourth nation with anti-satellite weapon capabilities. India is also pursuing space exploration. On July 22, 2019, India launched Chandrayaan-2, an unmanned mission for a soft landing on the Moon's southern polar region on September 7, 2019. India made its first successful lunar launch in 2008, orbiting the Moon 3,200 times and confirming the presence of water molecules on the Moon's surface. In 2014, India successfully sent a probe to orbit Mars. India Prime Minister Narendra Modi has promised to send a manned rocket into space by 2022. Powers are also heading for the stars. On July 11, 2019, a Japanese spacecraft successfully landed on an asteroid and collected underground samples. Scientists hope this data will provide information on the origin of the solar system. Japan is the first country to obtain underground samples from a place farther away than the Moon. Iran is taking its place in the space race. On February 7, 2019, The Times of Israel reported that Iran appeared to have attempted a second satellite launch. The US says these efforts are intended to aid Iran's development of ballistic missiles. The US says these efforts are intended to aid Iran's development of ballistic missiles in violation of a UN resolution. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Iran's first launch in January 2019 the first stage of an intercontinental missile. The launch attempt came less than a week after Iran state media reported that it had equipped its most advanced and longest range missiles with precision guided warheads. Dangerous and unstable regimes are gaining the ability to bring down US cyber technology or to use such technology in weapons that could reach the US and its allies.
The US, a descendant of ancient Israel, received the birthright blessings that brought it to superpower status in the end time. But God warned that if the descendants of Israel failed to obey, He would strip them of power and bring curses upon them. These blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience are recorded in Deuteronomy chapter 28.
In Deuteronomy 28 verse 13, God said that He would make Israel the head, not a tail. If it would obey, a blessing evident as the US became the leader in space. But in verse 48, Israel was warned if it disobeyed God's command, He would cause it to serve the enemies.
Those enemies have risen to threaten the descendants of ancient Israel on land and now in space. This new battlefield is beyond view of most people, but the exploitation of space will soon affect everyone.
What is foretold in the Bible is happening again in our lifetime. All this shows that we are living in the last days. Lord Jesus Christ is coming again very soon. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to tune into Science Lab next time.
Now, we would like to end the program by asking you a question. What is Chang'e 4? And the options are: Option A, first Chinese spacecraft to land on the moon. Option B, first Russian spacecraft to land on the moon. And option C, first Indian spacecraft to land on the moon.
Send us your correct answer to sciencelab@angeltv.org. If you have missed any of the episode, don't worry. You can watch it again and again in our Science Lab YouTube page. But don't forget to like, share and comment on this video.
Ask your friends and relatives to watch the Science Lab so that they will know that we are living in the last days. Remember, signs are happening because Lord Jesus is coming.
Maranatha.